open it up to the audience. First off, I just am curious, what drew you to this book by David Wong? Obviously, it's a crazy novel, but what spoke to you specifically?
Well, I don't know. Was it the talking dog, or was it the monster made of freezer meats? You know, the street drug that chooses you. Maybe that was it. No, there are a lot of really imaginative ideas in the book. Do we have any anybody out here who's read the John Dies at the End? Oh yeah, we got some people there, and also, you know, obviously the book was about 350 pages in length, and screenplay had to be about 90, so a lot got left by the wayside just by the nature of converting to a film. So if anybody enjoyed the movie, you might want to check out the book. There's still a lot of really great stuff in there. And plus the author, David Wong, has come out with his sequel, which has more adventures of John and Dave. And it's titled, This Book is Full of Spiders. Seriously, dude, don't touch it. And it's another imaginative work.
So how long did it take to option it? Because this was a self-published book and then went to a publisher. Has this been a long process?
No, making the arrangement with David Wong was easy because you know, he had been a fan of a couple of my other movies. The hard part was just getting in touch with him because once I'd read the book, I tracked down an email address and sent him an email, and you know, weeks went by and I didn't get a response, and I was crushed. I think, oh God, he's not responding. Sent him another email, no response, and finally he did respond, and I got him on the phone, and I asked, well, why did it take so long? He said, oh, well, you know, my friends knew that I was a Phantasm fan, and I thought they were playing a joke on me. So, in any case, so he, very easy guy, was really excited to get his project put onto the screen. And the adaptation was a real challenge, because there are so many great sequences and segments, and you know, it's very imaginative work, and getting it all condensed was really hard, you know, in terms of trying to decide what we, you know, there's some massive sequences we could have never afforded to do. Those had to go. But then, you know, trying to put them into like a movie kind of, I mean, a coherent narrative, which, you know, some people might dispute whether this movie is coherent. I'm going to tell you, compared to the book, this is very coherent.
Because that book is so dense with just so much insanity, and the movie is pretty insane, so the book is like insane squared. So...
The Insane Square, we'll put that
it
in the
is, yeah. I mean, did you ever consider like doing like a Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2 kind of thing? I mean, because that could have easily been split into 2 films. I mean, if you...
No, I didn't think about that, honestly.
Okay. So now you've, I think, mostly gone the independent route, right, in terms of financing and producing your films.
Yeah. Did
you try to go to studios with this project?
I did, and a very interesting thing happened, which was I got to know Paul Giamatti and had worked with him on trying to get a sequel made to The Hotel, which was a lot. We had some challenges, and at one point he has a little production company, and they made some great little movies. They made a film called Cold Souls, which I liked a lot. They got a new one coming out with Paul Giamatti and Paul Rudd. It's called Lucky Dog, and it's about 2 French-Canadian Christmas tree importers and this heist that goes down, and it just sounds great. So Paul's been dabbling and doing some different producing stuff, and he had offered to help me try to get the Bubba project funded, so we took a meeting over to studio, and it wasn't their cup of tea, and I can see that's fine. But these studio folk, they were in awe of Paul. They just wanted to make a movie with him, you know, like a more traditional movie. And after the meeting, I said to him, I'll let Paul, I know that those folks, they want to make a movie with you. Will you submit this John Dies at the End script and tell them you think it's cool? And he wrote this really nice email to the production executive and sent it over. And within like 2 days later, he sent me back this 3 single-space page analysis of the script. And I was reading it, and I was going, wow, this executive really gets the movie. Because I'm like, you know, how can you not like a movie that's got a broad or a cell phone in it? And as the person is describing the story, I'm seeing that, oh, it could work as a movie. This makes sense. This is great. And then it gets down to the last paragraph, and it just says, which brings us to the reason why we could never make this film. Because we would take it into our normal development process, and to adapt it or to develop it for a mass mall audience, we would have to remove all the things in it that you love. And that was the pass. And right there, I just realized that, you know, nobody's gonna fund this thing. And so I had a good friend, had a company. They were interested in making some movies, and I got with them, and we talked it over, figured out a plan, and they helped me fund it.
So I've always kind of thought that the reason people love Phantasm and Bubba Hotep so much is because you were able to do what you wanted to do. I mean, you kind of feel like that in terms of your career, in terms of how people sort of latch on your films as cult films. It's because you did it exactly the way you wanted to.
Well, I think both of those movies that you mentioned, they're a little different in a lot of ways. And people seem to really respond to filmmakers that do things a little different or take some chances and don't just, you know, regurgitate the same kind of stuff. Not that I haven't regurgitated some stuff in my career. But in any case, I really think that the filmmaking machine, the studios, don't really give the audience as much credit, truthfully. Because when I was embarking on Bubba Hotep, I had a great Joe Lansdale short story to start with. And I had the script, and I showed it to a number of friends, and people that might have financed it, and they just go, Don, what are you smoking? This is not going to work. You know, two old geezers in a rest home. You know, how's the youth audience going to respond to it? You know, you gotta put a couple, you know, young actors from the CW network in there, and, you know, then maybe we'll think about it. You know, and I just, the script was so, the script based on the story, I thought it was so clever and good. I keep reading it, and this could make a movie, and I went ahead, and I'll tell you one of the most satisfying things, I think, was Ground Zero was right here when we screened it, because you had, you know, there were a lot of 18 to 25-year-old, you know, horror fans, and they were really interested in this story about how we treat our elderly, you know, and at the same time enjoying the mummy component to it. So I just really think that that some of these companies could take a lot more risks and do things more, you know, more interesting. But you know, for better or worse, it's just been a little challenging for me. Handing $10 million on some little platter.
Well, John Dies at the End is being distributed by Magnet, who does a lot of kind of interesting genre pictures. Do you think this movie's going to pose any specific challenges in terms of marketing, like what audience it's going to be for? Or do you kind of know who it's going to hit?
Well, we've had a lot of screenings at different festivals, and certainly it seems to be, thank God, it seems to be embraced by the David Wong, John Dies at the End fans, so we're starting there. And certainly the horror fans and conventions have gotten a lot of great positive feedback. You know, but this movie, unlike my others, has got some really interesting cast in it. I mean, Paul Giamatti brings an entirely different component. You know, and of course, you know, Glenn Turman and Nancy Brown. So I think that they have a fix in terms of going pretty wide with it, actually, because it's, you know, it's got a lot of different elements that you could work marketing around. I mean, hell, it stars a dog, a beautiful dog. There's an audience for them out there.
This is the next Marley in me. That's the movie that movie should have been. So this character of the reporter was obviously sort of constructed to adapt the book to try to connect a lot of the weirdness of the book. I mean, did that character come about because of Giamatti, or did you already have that planned before he was cast?
No, it's straight out of the book. But it's very, you know, it's a traditional type of thing. I mean, if you go back to Citizen Kane, you've got your reporter who's on the story, and it gives you a framing device for, you know, every once in a while when things get a little too crazy and you don't really know what's going on, you come back and the reporter sort of centers it, and defines some of the questions that you want. But absolutely, from the first time I sat down with the book and I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, this is a role that Paul can play. And what's nice about it also is it didn't require a whole lot of days of his time, so it wouldn't be a big obligation.
Well, I think people who love Phantasm are probably happy that Angus Scrimm pops up in the film. I know I was. I was talking earlier about how much I love Angus Scrimm, that when he came to the Loft a couple years ago, I was so scared. I was scared to meet him, and he was the nicest guy I think I've ever met. So do you plan on trying to use Angus Scrimm as much as possible?
Oh, I'm always looking for roles for Angus, and the thing is that in a strange way I owe him a huge debt, because I put him in Phantasm movies, and he was, the films were very successful and essentially launched my career, all right? But if you go back and analyze the first Phantasm, I think Angus has 6 lines, and he's only in like 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the film, all right? So he's a wonderful, classically trained actor, and that's why I had this opportunity a few years ago when I did this Masters of Horror TV series, and there was a character that I was able to bring Angus on to play, and he had pages of dialogue. He was just the happiest actor that could be.
Yeah. Whenever he pops up in a movie, you know it's going to be good, because he just brings so much. He's almost like a Boris Karloff character, Vincent Price.
Well, that's absolutely true, because, ever since the passing of Vincent Price, the classic horror star has sort of receded, and in a way, it's fallen to Angus now. And so he's like the last of those old classic ones. I can't think of any new classic horror stars coming up, really. It's, yeah.
Keep using him. So I guess that leads into my question. You probably get asked this all the time, but is there going to be a Phantasm 5, do you think?
Well, look, I've been doing a little publicity for John Dies at the End, and I've been stunned how in every context like this, the question comes up. I didn't realize there was that much interest, because I thought I'd finished it up with Phantasm 4. I thought I had a pretty concrete ending there, but I think it's a testament to those actors, Reggie Bannister, Michael Baldwin, Angus Scrimm, of course, these folks, audiences really respond to them, and probably what made the Phantasm films have some longevity is the fact that there are these actors that have these very real characters in there that audiences could relate to. Probably why it makes certainly the first movie scary is because they aren't the fakey characters you really like and you care about. You don't want to see bad come to them. So, but long story short is that I used to say never, but there's so much interest. But who am I to say no? So I gotta see what I can do. Everybody still looks great. Angus is in good shape. Reggie looks great. So I'm sure we could do one.
That's good. Let's do part 5. Yeah. So and obviously you're working on the Bubba Hotep. The idea for the Bubba Hotep sequel is in the works.
Well, no, it's really fallen by the wayside. We had it all set up, it was ready to go. It was a great concept of telling this sort of parallel. It was going to be both a prequel and a sequel, which was going to be pretty exciting. In that we were going to have Elvis had his nurse resuscitated first off down by the bank where it ended. And she had a great line in the script where the administrator, played by Reggie Bannister, says, "He's dead, Elvis has left the building." And she goes, "Not on my watch." And she starts counting. She was a great character, resuscitates him, but they're kicked out of the rest home. So there's this whole section that's kind of like driving Miss Daisy, but with the nurse driving Elvis to the next rest home down in France. And Elvis tells a story about how he had a real run with some real vampires down there. It's a really cool script, but I just don't know that's going to happen. I think Bruce sort of lost interest in it, and who's a key component of it. So for now, it's not a real priority for me.
Well, I may be in the minority, but I love the Beastmaster. I'd love to see that continue. Would you ever do that? I mean, there's a sequel, but would you do a third one? Ever?
Hey, yeah, hell, why not?
Sequels to all.
Yeah. I have no control over those rights. So they're with some, party in the another country, actually. And I'm sure one day I'm going to open up a newspaper and see that they're remaking The Beastmaster. And God knows who's going to play the Beastmaster. That would be interesting. But look, it was the Beastmaster was a weird experience for me, and there's so many fans out there. I'm so grateful that people embraced it and loved it, and certainly all the 12-year-olds who watched it over and over and over again on HBO, which Billy Crystal had actually called on The Tonight Show. The name for HBO was, "Hey, Beastmaster's on." That's a true joke that he had. Something else had a joke. Oh yeah, TBS was the Beastmaster station. But I guess it was ingrained into the youth of the 80s. But it was a difficult experience for me because the first movie I ever made where I had severe creative interference. I couldn't even hire the animal trainer that I wanted, and I had no control over the editing. And for me, editing is probably the most enjoyable and interesting part of, and most important part of filmmaking, because you're really, writing the visuals. But I actually was physically excluded from the editing room, so that the movies was sort of just made on its own. And afterwards, I had a real sour taste in my mouth, and I was like going, it had opened in a few theaters, it just did okay, it was gone after a month, and I just thought, oh, good, that's out of my life, I'll never have to think about it again. And it's on TV again and again and again. People are asking me about it. But I would suggest if you really want to see more Beastmasters, go on YouTube and watch one of the coolest little short movies called Beastmaster Jr. Has anybody out there seen it? It's hilarious. This father and son went out and did their version of the Beastmaster. And it's wonderful. So check that out.
Well, when I was 12, I thought The Beastmaster was the only film that had ever been made. So pretty much so. I've learned since then, but it was very pivotal. So can we maybe open it up to the audience for some questions? Does anybody have any questions for Don? Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I was wondering, now after seeing this, I'm really excited for the next one. Are you going to be making the next one?
Well, here's the deal. You're going to need to go see it 3 or 4 more times in the theater, and you're going to have to buy 3 or 4 DVDs. And if everybody here does that, maybe, because truthfully, I can't be facetious, but it's all in the hands of the commercial gods. So if the film performs and does well, yeah, could there be a sequel? Absolutely. I mean, what I like to work with those two guys, Chase and Rob, the 2 guys who are leads, are terrific and really nice guys. And obviously, we sort of folded a little mini sequel into the end credits there, so you can see that there could be lots of adventures. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun if things worked out that way. But the jury is still out. So in January, and I like to just make a shameless pitch here. Because if you like the movie, please tell all your friends, mention it on Twitter, post on our Facebook, John Dye's Movie, and we really need the help of fans to get this strange story out to the mass audience.
And you can come see it at the Loft in February.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
absolutely.
Come see it again. So does anyone else have any questions? How about right there?
Well, I will just say, if I had a Twitter account and cell phones were allowed during the show, I totally would have Twittered that I was watching this amazing movie at the time. But my question is, given a 350-page novel, having to break it down to a 90-page script, how do you go about tackling a treatment to present?
Well, it's a really good question, and I think for me it has a really simple answer, which is if you've read the book, you'll find that like the first 80% of the movie is like in the first 100 pages of the book. But then it takes a left turn to Las Vegas to a completely, for me, unfilmable sequence, So I was looking at that and thinking, well, I wonder if I could just jump to the end and try to fuse the ending from the book onto this first section. And it seemed like I could. And it was funny because at the time I sent an email to David Wong. His real name, by the way, is Jason Parchin. It was an assumed name for him also. And I think he said he might regret that a little bit now that the commercial success of the book is it's going to be David Wong for the rest of his life. But I asked him and I said, look, how would you make a movie out of this thing? And he pretty much said the same thing that I said. You know, I'd use the first section and then try to jump ahead to the ending. And so, you know, getting like his independent sort of voice of approval, I thought would probably be a good way to go. So that's how we did it. But thank you for the kind words about the movie. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Yeah, we're in the back.
What zombie books were you reading at the time?
I've got to remember the name. There was one I think called As I Lay Dying. There was another one called, why am I not remembering them? I'll be ready for that next question next time. I'll have to go back and review. There were 2 or 3 of them that year that I had read that I liked a lot. The problem is that now that the new zombie stuff is so successful, it's like I can't even remember what I was reading back then because it's kind of taken over. But thank you.
Would you adapt another book? Would you consider?
Well, look, as a filmmaker, it's the easiest thing there is. I mean, when you find yourself a book like, or a short story like Joe Lansdale's Bubba Hotel, or David Wong's John Dies at the End, I mean, that's easy stuff. And I think that because you know the creativity, there's so much creativity already in there. You know, it's funny because they're very celebrated film directors who don't write and they just do adapt and stuff like that. And, you know, that is the easy path. But obviously, it does take some work to try to find an adaptation or to create an adaptation that will work as a film because they're completely different things. I will tell you this though, in comparing my last 2 movies, I definitely go in the direction of Bubba Hotel because I think I was on something there because it was based on a 40-page novella, and that just, you know, it just fit right into the word processing program. But, you know, you look at this 350 pages, like, what do I, you know, what the hell do I do now? So, but no, I'm always reading and finding things that are, you know, interesting, and I can try to figure out ways to adapt them. But a lot of times, you'll get a book and you'll get started and have a great opening, and you're so excited because it goes this way, and then it goes in a whole different way. That, you know, look at there are different mediums, and a lot of literature is really more internalized, you know, and very hard to put into a 90-minute popcorn-style movie.
Do you have a question over here? Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of us, you're sort of a guilty pleasure, and we expect you to, you know, kind of read horror. You're talking about reading. What's something we wouldn't expect you to read that you enjoyed?
Well, I was a big Cormac McCarthy fan before The Road. If you've ever read Blood Meridian, that's a wild movie. Book. Should be a movie, one day maybe. But when people put me on the spot like that, it's like, have I ever read a book? Let's see, what have I read? I like biographies, I like World War II stuff. I read Unbroken about Louis Zamperini, you know, on the raft in the Japanese internment camp. And a lot of different biographies. I have a broad array, a lot of interest. The funny thing is that, you know, everybody says, oh, Don, horror director. You know, I never started off to be a horror director. And I've got some friends who are also in the same predicament, because you have a movie like a Phantasm and it has a certain level of success, and everyone looks at you, you basically get confined to the horror ghetto. And, which is cool, because I love horror, all right? But it is funny because I have other friends like, you know, it's like Stuart Gordon and guys like that, and they tend to just always be, you know, it's just like if you try to find something that's a little different, it's very hard to get anybody to give you any respect in that. So, yeah, I got lots of different things I'd like to try one day if I ever have the opportunity. But, thank you.
Are you dying to make a romantic comedy?
Yeah.
I like to see that. Is there a question back there?
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the scene where they give the glasses to Amy, was that in the book? Or was that a reference to Carpenter and They Live?
Well, it might have been a reference to They Lived, certainly, which is a fantastic film. But I think that maybe that would have been a question you asked David Wong, because it did come straight out of the book. Yeah.
So we have time for a couple more questions. How about here at the end? How about you in the white and then you in the front? Yeah. No? All right. Megan? Yes.
Considering how you found this hidden gem in David Wong, is he the only sort of exclusive thing, or have you been kind of looking into some of his colleagues at Crack.com, Michael Swain, Robert Brockway, some of their sort of interesting literary gems? Have you been looking into them as well, or?
I haven't read any of it, but I will tell you that I do go to Crack, and their work is terrific. It's hilarious. And the fact that they're able to crank this stuff out, I mean, I can only imagine the pressure that they're under to be creative on a, minute-by-minute basis, because the output on that site is phenomenal. Every day you go, there's a dozen different amazing articles. But it's a good idea, and thank you for reminding me. I want to take another look at those guys, because they're all super talented.
So was there a question, or was that a fake out?
Well, actually, hold on for a second,
Oh.
just to explain to everyone else out there. After David Wong sold his book and it came out, he started off as he had his own little comedy website. He was hired to be an editor at this website, Crack.com. So if you ever want to go visit, you can experience some of his other humor there. Yeah.
Did you have a question in the white jacket? No. All right. I want to put you on the spot. There was a question right there.
I just wanted to say that I do have a Twitter account, and I am going to Twitter about this. I've only got like 56 followers, but I'm going to say I really loved the movie, and it was a total trip. I really appreciated it. And I just want to know about the Mall of the Dead. I mean, first of all, I love the concept. I'm sure it was from the book. I haven't read it. But what was the location?
Well, look.